Hey there guys, and welcome to this freaky review of Into the Breach. I'm your host Kingdom Freak, and this game that I'm reviewing today, I've heard a lot of positive reviews about, and I thought, hey, let's give it a shot. Before I start this review, I do want to mention, yes, this is a review of a roguelike. How am I going to do this? Roguelikes can't really be finished. Well, I've got a system now in place for roguelikes, and most roguelikes don't really have a true way of completing the game. Some games get around this with being able to do achievements. As an example, for this game, beating the final island is one of the achievements. This is what I will consider to complete the game. There are other aspects that will determine whether or not the game should get the best completion rating. So without further ado, let's get started. Into the Breach is a roguelike tactical sci-fi game that puts a spin on the genre, that asks the player to go back and help out every timeline possible and beat the Vek in that time. Vek are the antagonists of the game, and that is it, really. No other things are known about them other than they came from the depths of the earth. You take control of one of the time travelers, or otherwise known as pilots. They have abilities and are obtained during play. Now, before I mentioned that there were multiple conditions for completing the game, right? First is beating the game on the hardest difficulty. Not too hard, right? Well, it's not that simple. Not only do you have to beat the game on the hardest difficulty with every squad, you have to beat the game with every squad with 2, 3, and 4 island completions. So the minimum amount of runs that you have to do to beat the game is actually 30 runs. That is the minimum. Taking that all into account, it would probably take around about 25 to 30 hours alone just to complete the game, which isn't too bad for a game to be completed, but that's playing perfectly. The second aspect for this game to get a completion rating is getting all the achievements. Whilst you do these naturally during the game, some of them are kind of annoying to get. And last but certainly not least, collecting every pilot is a must for completion. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a doozy, unfortunately. So let's see if we actually do complete this. The Vek have been destroying multiple timelines, and your first pilot, Ralph, opens a breach and tries to go back to save other timelines. Wow, there is a lot less of a story in this game than the previous review, huh? Oh well, that's roguelikes for you. Let's go into gameplay then. Into the Breach has a location selection field where you get to pick where you go. The first island that you get to play on, Archive Island, is a forest area where you learn how fire works. RST Island is the island where you get smoke, and it prevents enemies from attacking. The Robotics Island is an ice wasteland where it prevents people from attacking. And the Disposal Island, which is a massive factory setting where acid exists, where it doubles the next damaging attack. On the top of the screen, you'll see a power grid. This represents your absolute health total. Anytime that a building loses health, you take grid damage. If the power grid reaches 0, you lose the run. Luckily, you have a thing called grid defense. Anytime that a building is attacked by a Vek, the grid defense has a chance to protect the building. These buildings are on a tactical board and are on the main playing field. You control 3 mechs during each battle. Each of the mechs that you pilot will have 5 things: a pilot, a weapon, and a passive for some mechs, movement, health, and power. Power is the mech's resource and increases your mech's capabilities. Health is how much damage you can take before the mech is dead. Oh wait, out of commission. Movement. Yeah, the mech can move that many spaces in a turn, obviously. Now, this is where the gameplay gets a little bit more interesting, because weapons will ultimately determine how you will play the game. Weapons do multiple things, like deal damage to units, manipulate where units are, and enhance other things, block opponents' attacks. You'll get the idea. They are the backbone of your strategy, Pilots are also important because they give your mech special abilities, increasing the mech's resilience or damage or giving grid defense. Pilots also have 2 level ups where they gain additional traits. Pilots gain experience by destroying Vek, or moving them into spaces where all the mechs actually die and they gain experience or gain a shared experience. Once the battle is over, you are rewarded for any side objectives that you complete. Rewards include Reputation, which is used at the end of the island, Grid Power, and Power Cores, which can also be installed into mechs, increasing their capabilities. At the end of the island, if you complete all side objectives, you are rewarded with one of the 3. A new weapon, a new pilot, or 2 Grid Power. After this, there's a store where you can buy weapons, Power Cores, and Grid Power. You use your reputation to buy all of these things. You can also sell your weapons and pilots for reputation as well. After the game is finished, with either victory or defeat, you get to select one pilot and they come with you on the next run with their current experience. I personally have a confession to make. I don't like these 8-bit style look games because it kind of looks a little bit jarring on the eyes, but it does give that feel of an 80s game that seems to be good for a lot of these types of games. Unfortunately, the massive drawback is that the designs aren't very complex, enemies need to be different color palettes to tell each other apart. The downside is that you could potentially not tell 2 different effects apart. If they're vastly different in their gameplay, they do have different art looks. But it's kind of an annoying thing, but it is a personal preference of mine. So, how well does this game do in the sound department? Well, it doesn't really do well, unfortunately. It has a very simple set of sound effects that make every attack feel like it doesn't hurt. If there was more oomph to the sound effects, I probably would actually be okay with it. But most of the music sounds really somber, and that actually works well with the game as well. But again, it doesn't make everything great. To be honest, the only thing I can really compliment the game on is actually how well the weapons arts were, since they were actually pretty cool. After dealing with the torture of getting every achievement and beating the game with every single squad on the hardest difficulty with all the medals, you are able to earn a surprise. A secret team. To be honest, the secret team is a Vek team, which is actually a pretty cool reward. And what makes them really, really cool is that they actually can use any weapon except ones that are of that have any class. Other than that, there is no other completion bonuses. I would have personally liked to have seen a different ending to the secret team with a thanks at the end of it. Into the Breach is a good game with some replayability to the game. The game did fall short, however, it doesn't mean that the game is definitely not playable. By a completion standpoint, I did manage to finish the game, but most people, I would actually say, just give it a shot. In terms of the completion aspect of this game, it can be a hard task to ask. If you know what you're doing, you could complete this game in around about 60 to 75 hours. But if you're starting off not knowing anything about the game, I can easily see it taking 100 hours or more, even if you're good at tactical games. It's not by any means a hard completion, but for this game, it's a hard pass, unfortunately, because these types of games wear out their fun after the 20th playthrough for a lot of players, if not most players. Unfortunately, with that in mind, I give this game a 7 out of 10 and a completionist rating of play it. Play it! Whilst I recommend the game being good enough to play, it's better just to have fun than take the game seriously. The reason why that is a 7 out of 10 is that people will have fun with the game. It's just when the novelty actually comes off, unfortunately. Now for this section, I normally recommend to you games that you should play if you like this game. But most of the games that I previously mentioned in a Freaky review apply here. But I am going to add a new game that replaces specifically Binding of Isaac, and that is Monster Train. As a new recommendation, this game gets you to go through the depths of hell protecting a pyre from bandit attacks. This is the best roguelike that's come out this year, and is a hard recommend even for those that don't necessarily like the roguelike genre. That's all the time that I have for today, guys, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek at what I'm going to be playing next. I'll see you guys next time, and stay freaky!